Mike, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Very well, thank you. It's interesting times for the wine industry. China, a major market for Queensland and Australian wines. Can you tell us the value of the Queensland exports to China?
Look, at present, Mike, there's only probably two major players at the present time. Sirromet Wines at Mount Cotton in Greater Brisbane, and the other winery would be Clovelly Estate Wines, which is up in the Murgon district in the South Burnett. There would be filterings and little bits and pieces coming out from some of the smaller wineries, but these particular players are probably the only ones who would have the sufficient supplies. Maybe one or two of the Gold Coast wineries might be filtering a bit of wine into there, but at present, the out of all of the Queensland producers combined, I would say maybe 20–25% of the wine.
Despite some concerns with China several months ago, were there any restrictions imposed then?
No, we didn't see any restrictions. We actually were still filtering some small parcels of wine into China, but as you would be aware, the current situation globally with COVID has restricted a lot of movements, not only with wine but beef. And realistically, it's put the world into a bit of a scare. Nobody really knew what was happening, what the future was going to be. And I guess you would probably say that's still the case at present.
The anti-dumping case, do you think this is more of a trade war than of just being real? It's, as Donald Trump would say, is this fake news?
Well, look, I don't think it's fake news, and I think it may be a result of, I think if you go way back, Mike, when the COVID investigation began, and I think I made quite a strong point way back then. I said, look, I'm all for finding out how the virus started, and also, but the main reason is so that we can prevent another virus of its kind spreading throughout the world. But should we, a small country who relies heavily on the Asia Pacific, as trade partners, lead the charge? I didn't think so. And, like I always say, don't bite the hand that feeds you.
It's. I was watching television this morning, and they were saying that about 36% of the market in China of all the wines is Australian, and that we're the second most expensive out of all the wines that's imported or exported to China. So the anti-dumping thing sort of, maybe not. It's just that it is such great wine. And if it's great wine, they're going to buy it. And that's the idea of it.
Correct. Look, I think to sum it all up about the dumping of wine, what they're particularly worried about, and don't forget, China now, within the next 5 years, will be the biggest wine producer in the world. It'll overpass France, Italy and Spain. They'll have more grapes and wine for production coming out. They're nearly there now. I think they're number 2 in the world. And one way is to encourage their own countrymen to enjoy their own product. But two, also, it is looking at, for argument's sake, if you could put it into a nutshell, if you're purchasing $35 for a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon in Australia and they export it to China, they may export it for around $10. There's two reasons behind this. They'll drop the price significantly to get in to the marketplace over there, but also there's also the other addition is that there's relaxation of tariffs and taxes as importation taxes. So because it was a free trade agreement between China and Australia, it became more apparent that it was a very important partner for us going forward.
Just briefly talk about the Chinese wine. I'm sorry, I'm a bit shocked with that. Always thought Chinese wine was cherry wine, which you never touched.
No.
But if they're such a great wine producer, two things. One, it must make the rest of the world a bit nervy. But secondly, is it a copycat?
Look, there's no doubt about it, Mike. They've actually employed Australian winemakers and Australian viticulturists who have gone over there, lived there, particularly in the northern provinces, and they've started to develop quite significant land holdings of major varieties, i.e. Cabernet Sauvignon, Chardonnay, Shiraz, etc. And yes, they will be making similar wine styles to Australia and the New World wine styles, because these are the people who are teaching them how to grow grapes and make wine. It's quite a significant jump and boom for them. They've actually launched a wine not so long ago, about 3 years ago, which is the equivalent of our Grange Hermitage, and it comes from 5 provinces. And it's a Cabernet Sauvignon, and it was called Aoyum. and spelled AOYUM. And I've actually had the fortune of trying it. And it's an outstanding wine, brilliant quality. It's exemplary of any quality wine across the planet.
So do you see, when obviously wine prices are, it's controlled by demand in many cases. So the price of wine, especially when China really cranks up things, and with all the other wine markets being so strong, the price of wine globally could come down. I mean, I can buy a really nice bottle of wine. Let me tell you, I went to a local bottle shop and they had this wine that was normally $18 a bottle, and they were selling it for $5.
Yeah, look, yes. 2 nights ago, I went to a local fine wine shop here, which is quite well known, and I purchased a bottle of Garnacha, which is Spanish word for Grenache, which is quite a synonymous variety in quality in regards to South Australian vineyards. And it was $10 a bottle, and I thought, I'll give it a go and bring it home and try it. It was under screw cap. I opened it up and I was shocked at the quality. It was just through the roof. I just went, my goodness. So not only have we got competition from the Americas, but we'll also have competition from the less economically challenged varieties of all countries, like in Europe, as in Portugal and Spain and Italy. They're producing outstanding wines at a very, very low price. Is
Australia then in a position then to match the wines from around the world? Because our cost of labour is much more than the US, much more than China, Chile, Argentina, all those. So we have a very high cost of labour and to do business. So can we compete on the world stage?
Look, I think the tipping point is bearing on fragility to the top end. If we continue to put our hands out instead of our hands up as a nation, it will inevitably hurt us globally and also domestically. And I'm seeing it as well. It's another argument, but we're pampered a bit, us Australians. I think we're the highest holiday makers in the world, of any nation in the world. And whereas if you have a look at nations like China and Japan, I think they get 1 week's holiday. And not us. We have a holiday for opening an envelope. That's what's happening around the country.
Look, I'm just looking for that envelope at the moment. I can't seem to find one. I'll have a holiday later. Actually, my holidays are a bit like yours. They would love to do one, but at the moment it's you can't. It's just head down and backside up, isn't it?
It's very hard work. We're at the present stage. I've just noticed the exudates, which are the little white roots, hairs on the end of the white roots in the grapevine, starting to move. So the soils are warming up, and we actually had bud burst the day before yesterday. The very first bud burst out. So it's all guns a-blazing now at Mount Cotton Vineyard here. So, not only preparing wines from last year and getting them into bottle, but now we're looking forward and looking ahead to the 2021 vintage.
With a bud burst, is that a bit like going to a hospital and your wife having quads?
It's fantastic, mate. I look forward to it.
Do you have a drink? Do you have a celebration drink?
Yes, I did last night. Yes, I did. And I had a reflection, and I always reflect the very first time that I ever noticed bud burst and was explained to me fully about, the nature and the symbiosis between nature and soil and how it interacts and how it happens. And it's a fascinating process, and I never, ever, ever take it lightly. It's the extraordinary world of nature.
Now, because we're broadcasting globally, thanks to modern science and at this stage YouTube, some wines to look forward to from your part of the woods.
Look, Queensland wines in particular have taken a giant step forward. I think the beauty about being a Queensland wine producer is that we're not restricted like some of our southern counterparts, where you must grow Cabernet Sauvignon and you must grow Shiraz, or you must grow Chardonnay, or you must grow Semillon, because it's been traditional for the last 50 to 100 years. We've moved into the emerging varieties categories, and an emerging variety is where the variety is less than 1% of the national total. And in particular, we've taken a strong interest and viewpoint around the Portuguese, Spanish and Italian varieties. And some of the ones to look out for going forward: Montepulciano, it's an Italian variety, it's a red wine. It's lovely, soft, round, robust, delicious with a lot of Mediterranean foods. Fiano and Vermentino are a couple more of the Italian white wines, which come up around near Campania and Abruzzi. And in the other categories, particularly the Portuguese and the Spanish varieties, Tempranillo, etc. Sorry about that, Mike.
Technology overtime here.
Yes. And particularly, I think, going forward with the climate change atlas that was released just last month, there's quite a severity of increase in temperature, and most regions are going to be looking at 4 to 5 degrees by the end of 2080. So therefore, concentration on the varieties that are now handling extreme weather conditions from Portugal, where they're currently reaching 50 degrees in centigrade now quite frequently throughout the growing period. They're the varieties I believe we must shift to and change to. So the consumer, within maybe 20 to 25 years, they will not be drinking champagne as we know it, because those varieties won't be able to be grown in those regions to make that quality wine. They'll be still drinking sparkling wine, but it could be coming from a variety like Alvarinho or Fulgul, which are white varieties from Spain and Portugal. And so our taste buds will have to be re-educated and trained, but that's good.
Sounds delicious. I'm almost smacking my lips, but it's a bit early, so I'll have to wait till a bit later to have some brie cheese and a nice glass of wine. Look, just back to the China thing, the anti-dumping case. Can you just tell me if the exports are the exports held up at docks while this investigation occurs, or will they still allow wines through? Look,
some are getting allowed through. It all depends on what dock and in what port it's at. I have heard that there are some just sitting there, which is quite dangerous, particularly in temperatures, if wine's sitting in a hot box on the dock, just sitting there, bobbing away. But I do know that one rather very large Australian wine company is quite nervous about this, because 40% of their activity goes to China.
Oh my goodness.
And if that's the case, the thing that I'm fearing is that if this particular company can't send that wine to China, well, then they're going to dump that other 40% onto the domestic market. And in effect, that will hurt all the other markets down here.
It's a really hard business to be in on the land. I mean, you've got to worry about the Mother Nature, and then you've got to worry about governments, whether they make good decisions or bad decisions. The easy bit is probably just selling it to the consumer. Make a good product, they'll buy it. It's the other bits in between that make it hard. I mean, so I have to ask you this question. Why would you ever want to get into an industry that is being smashed around the head so many times?
If you've got the blood running through your veins of pure grape juice, it's hard to cut the wrist and let it out, mate. You can't do it. I'm just so lucky as a human being. I'm doing what I love, and I love what I do, and it's exactly what I wanted to do when I was 15 years of age. And every day I learn more and I read more, and every day I just feel like it's such a privilege to be in this industry. And it's because it's the science, it's the tradition, it's the history. It's every vintage is different. There's no two vintages the same. There's no two wines the same. And it's an extraordinary market out there. But it's quite challenging. We've just come out of droughts. We've come out of bushfires, and then throw COVID in on top of that. It's had a huge detrimental effect to our trade. We're seeing the trade here in Brisbane. It's slowly coming back, and it's quite good. Don't get me wrong, it's quite good, but it's not like it was pre-COVID. And I do fear that there will be a lot of wineries suffering what I call the post-COVID effect, which they may lose 50 or 60% of their business. Now, if that's the case, well, they're going to have to remove 50 or 60% of their workforce. So that has an effect right through the entire economy. How do we find more work for these people? It's been very challenging times, but like what I say, you get up in the morning, you blink the eyes, you jump out of bed and you go, here we go for another day. We're at it again.
Mike Hayes, President of the Queensland Wine Industry Association, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Well, Nadine, welcome today. We're going to have a really special tasting of our new release. It's a darker rosé, but I call it a rosé with attitude. And
it's very raspberry, isn't it?
It is very raspberry.
Very raspberry, but it doesn't have a label, Mike.
No. So this is for the members, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to have a competition to all our club members to see if they can invent a label for our Chambourcin Muscat Rosé.
That's a great idea.
But have a look at this. It's just
Yeah.
beautiful. It's like light raspberry in colour. But I think what I like about this is the nose, cherry cola.
Isn't it? Definitely.
Lovely
I was
cherry.
just about to say cherry coke, you know.
Yeah,
like,
that's exactly right. Cherry coke, cherry cola. It's just lovely and fresh. And you can see in the background there, behind it, there's
But
that
it's not overly sweet.
No, and it's not
It's
sweet.
nice and dry.
It's nice and dry. It would taste sweet.
Looks sweet.
It looks sweet, and it doesn't taste sweet.
No.
So. So light chill on this. You know, you want to bring this down to about 8 to 9 degrees. Beautiful wine just to sit out there with other members of Sirromet,
yes.
other club members, and enjoy. But as you can see, it's not bone dry, and it's very fresh fruit and lots of red berries in the mid palate. And that's what we're trying to get, something that's easy drinking. And this is the fruits of the hard labour of all the club members.
Yeah, all the club members picked the fruits
All
that
the
went
club
into
members
this
picked
from
it.
here up Mount Cotton.
So, big competition for all our club members. Send in your designs and we'll choose the best design.
Yes.
And they'll get a case of wine.
Oh, great idea.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Good on you. Cheers.
Cheers.